Megavanan and welcome my friends to Elven Awakenings, chatting with the Elven Scholar. And now, to your guide to all things Elvish, Dr. Erendil Spindler-Ellis, the Elven Scholar.
Once upon a time in a forest rich in pine and oak lived a young elf. He lived amongst his neighbors who were clothed in fur and feather, and found joy and peace with each sunrise, and silence in the evening light of the stars. He spent his days communing with his woodland brothers and sisters, and the nights in contemplation and meditation. Light shone upon him unstained from the mortal world, and he was happy. But as time passed, he became more aware of the land outside, filled with fear and despair, and he knew his time of living in the gentle woods was coming to an end, and his journey as a teacher was upon him. When the morning sun found him again, he walked out of the forest with nothing but the clothes on his back, and strode into the land of man, to teach and to be taught. For it is the way of all teachers, that the student so often will be the better master. This is my story, and it is true. My name is Erendil, and I am the Elven Scholar. Megavan and my Elven Fae and other kin family. Today is a little change of pace. We're going to have an interview with an actual Elven botanist, someone who practices in the field as a botanist scientist, as an environmentalist, and he also believes in following the Elven way. So I hope you enjoy the show. All right, well, we have with us today Shawn Mckenzie, who is a botanist in Canada, and he is also a follower of the Elven Culture. So we're very happy to have Shawn with us today, and good morning, Shawn.
Good morning.
Okay, so I've got a lot of questions I'd like to ask because I think our listeners would be very curious about a botanist who is also a self-proclaimed elf, all right, and follows the Elven Culture. So how would you define your actual, as of today, your actual job title? What do you do? What's your title?
Okay, well, I am basically a plant physiologist. I study how plants, in general, ecosystems, how they react to climate change, changes in temperature, changes in management, disturbance events in the ecosystem. That's the research that I conducted as part of my PhD, which I completed a couple years ago.
Congratulations on that.
Yep, thank you. But I've always had an interest in medical plants, medicinal plants, so I have studied those also on my off time. So, but I'm particularly interested in how the ecosystems are reacting to human effects as well as climatological effects, which are indirectly caused by humans.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I'm actually going to ask you a few questions about that here in a little bit. So as far as your background, education, specialty, I guess you just told us your specialty. So I guess I would define your specialty as you like to research into how plants are being affected by humans' interaction in the world today. Would that be correct?
Yes.
So today, how would you define your current job title and duties? What is it that you are doing today?
Okay, so I've recently finished a postdoc where I continued my work as an environmentalist, studying how plants' physiology changes with time. And now I'm kind of, between, I'm not sure exactly what I will do next, but recently I've been teaching courses at a university where the focus of those courses is environmental interactions between the biosphere and the atmosphere, as well as the soil, the underlying soil as
right.
well. So I just finished teaching 2 courses, one for the biosphere interactions with the environment and the other with environmental interactions with the soil.
Just for your listeners' information, Shawn does do quite a bit of teaching. He also did a course for our online Elven School in Ben Gomorrah, where he did a course on botany, which wonderful course. Thank you very much. He did a great job with it. He designed it himself. So I think we already kind of discussed past jobs and things. Projects. What kind of projects have you been involved in that you would like to go ahead and share?
Um, well, one of the projects was where they did a thinning in one of the forests. So where during a thinning, you go in and remove some of the trees to allow the other remaining trees to grow. And I was part of the project in looking at how the remaining trees, how they responded to more light and water availability.
And what did you find?
Um, well, we found that thinning can kind of be a double-edged sword.
Exactly.
It can cause the forest to give up more carbon into the atmosphere through enhanced respiration.
Right.
Um, but it can be a benefit as well. So it's a very, you have to really know what you're doing and figure out what the issue is at hand before you go in and do a lot of thinning, because it can backfire on you.
Is the purpose of that in order to try to increase the health of the overall forest, or because I guess what I'm asking too is, for example, we lived up in Northern California for quite a number of years, and you have a lot of people pushing environmental protocols, or projects, only to find out that a lot of them are really doing it just for the health of the lumber industry. So what was the main goal of doing a project like that? What was your end all, not just for knowledge, but what were you hoping to attain?
Well, I didn't design the experiment, but I was involved with
Sure.
understanding, like looking at how the growth of the forest responded due to the thing. And I found that different types of thinning and removing of the canopy did trigger more growth to occur, but in other cases it did not. It was actually a hindrance. So, but these are in managed forests. So pretty much all forests in Canada, like in Southern Ontario here in the Greater Toronto area, in Southern Ontario, pretty much every single forest is managed in some way. They're not allowing, it's just the way it is, I guess.
It's not that way in the United States at all.
Yeah. Now, if you go up into northern Canada, like into the Boreal region, there's a lot of natural growth there. But what happened here in southern Canada is most of the forests were removed at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s.
Right.
Farming. So what they've attempted to do was to regrow the forest, but they're all managed. So what they did is they planted all the same species.
Oh, right.
Which is not very ideal because
the
diversity is very low.
Oh, nature is not a monocrop.
Right. So we kind of have this lingering problem.
So is it a project in Canada to try to rectify that? To try to introduce more species into a forest that's so mono?
Yeah, so that's the idea, is like
Great.
when you do certain types of thinning, you can actually promote the growth of the native species, like the oaks, the species that should be there.
Right.
But that was kind of on a research end. That's one project that I worked on. But more recently, on a personal level, I've been working with herbal medications. So I've been creating tinctures and other types of medications. So that's something that I'm working with more now. Since I'm kind of shifting from the research field and more into the herbal medication.
Do you do anything in the area of ethnobotany? Seeing how the history of using herbs pharmaceutically, with the natives that are those that are more indigenous to the area. Have you studied a lot of that?
So herbs that are indigenous to our area,
and the indigenous people, and seeing how they use them.
Yeah, actually, I have a couple of books here. Like I have this one called "The Path to Wild Food: Edible Plants and Recipes for Canada," and basically it's uh, produced or it was put together by Sandra Walker, who is an indigenous, who
Great.
used indigenous knowledge and the blending of Western science with indigenous knowledge with regards to herbal medications. So this is a great book.
Outstanding.
Um, so I have
Is that
looked
on
into
Amazon? You can get it on Amazon for the listeners?
probably
Okay, cool.
yeah, The Path to Wild Food by Sandra Walker.
Okay, thank you. Excellent.
So, but yeah, there's one of the research groups that I worked with recently does focus on indigenous knowledge, which was really neat because that's something that is coming out more and more recently, where we're seeing how indigenous knowledge is needs to be included in policy moving forward, environmental policy moving forward. It has a unique way of looking at how we look at the future and how we look at the past.
Right.
In indigenous knowledge, you look at 7 generations back, and then you look 7 generations forward. So whatever you do now, you're not going to see an immediate gain or an immediate response. It might take 7 generations
Right.
or to see that. So
That's wonderful. I like the forward thinking because so much of this knowledge is being lost. Those previous 7 generations, they're beginning to forget a lot of that knowledge. So wonderful. Okay, so let's kind of take a little detour here while still being in here. What made you first aware of Elven culture, spirituality? What was your first clue that, oh, there might be something out there?
this goes way back. Like when I was, in my teens or so, when I first read Tolkien's works,
Ah,
I think I was like, wow, I really like this elven lifestyle.
right.
So, treating the earth gently, um, that sort of mindset. So that's kind of when it started for me, and it's always been in the back of my mind. So that's why when I finished, high school and such, I really wanted to be an environmentalist, and
Do you think that
not
sparked it? That
just
sparked
from
that
the.
desire?
I'm sorry.
Do you think that sparked your desire to be an environmentalist?
I think it helped for sure.
Right.
It helped me because I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do when I finished grade school. So I looked into what I needed to do to become an environmentalist, and it's like, oh, well, you need an undergraduate degree. And I really enjoyed doing research, so I continued on with it. Um, but I was interested not just in the scientific aspects of it, but also in the spiritual aspects, because you really can't separate the two.
Right. So, how would you answer that? How does this affect today, you being a botanist, an environmentalist, a professor? How does your belief in Elven spirituality affect your work?
It's like, when I'm doing my research and I see, I get a result, but what I look at is what does this result really mean? Like, what does it mean for the plant community or the ecosystem, as well as for humans? It's like, what message are the plants that I'm that I'm receiving through the data? So the plants are telling me this message that I'm getting through the data. It's like the plants are trying to tell us something. So it's like, how do I convey that message? So I think that, but it's like science doesn't really leave a lot of room for spirituality,
No.
but I do try to, it's in the back of my mind when I'm putting together results. And when I often present my talks, when I talk about environment and ecosystem interactions, there is that spiritual component as well that I try to interweave in.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and I would love to see more people be able to say that it's not binary, it's not ones and zeros. You're either a scientist or you're into spirituality. They both can blend wonderfully together. And the spirituality can bring compassion to science. You know what I mean? That type of
Yeah.
thing.
And this actually does go back to the indigenous knowledge in a way, because a lot of the indigenous knowledge is spiritual as
Absolutely.
well as observation.
Well,
So,
shamanism, for example. Yeah,
yes.
absolutely correct. As things are going today, how do you see, and especially from the point of view an elven spirituality, how do you see that the long-term effects of humans on the environment? What do you see as long-term going on here?
In looking at the reports and such that are coming out by the IPCC, it's like, what is the long term, um, what can we expect to happen in the future?
Okay, for the listeners, what is that organization?
Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
Okay, and that's not just Canada.
Right. It's an international.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's hundreds of scientists have gotten together with governments, and they put together a report every 4 years or so. And so what this report does is it tells us, what we've learned from the past and what we can expect in the future. And it looks at not just, it looks at environment issues, but it's not just the physical environment. There's also the social
Right.
Effects of climate change.
And what are they saying?
Well, they're saying that we need to act, and in some cases we may be past the point of
tipping point. Yeah.
Past the tipping point. So what is happening is we have what's called feedbacks. So as climate changes, it triggers other things to take place, other processes.
Right.
So for instance, as the Earth is warming, it causes the permafrost to melt. When the permafrost melts, you have methane emissions, which contributes to more warming. So that's what we refer to as a positive feedback.
Right, because haven't they said basically methane is like 20 times more greenhouse than, say, carbon dioxide is?
Yes. So the problem is that these processes are being triggered. And this is why we're seeing more and more significant environmental concerns, such as extreme weather events or more flooding, more intense storms. So,
and you've seen these. Go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry. No, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, and all these are going to have an impact on the social, people,
right,
as well as the environments. So, like ocean acidification,
right,
or forests that are dying because of more droughts or more pests, such as mountain pine beetle,
right,
which are being triggered by these warming events.
Well, we have some in here, just in California. They're in the Sierra Nevadas, the mountains throughout the Sierra Nevadas. The beetles have just devastated, and there are literally hundreds of millions of trees that are dead. And they know that while that in itself is a horrendous thing, it now has produced this possible chain of events where there could be a massive, they're expecting it, not just if, but when, this massive wildfire that will occur, because you've got hundreds of millions of trees that are dead. And so that's just a whole nother trigger going on.
Yeah, so indeed. And that we're having that problem in Western Canada as well. Pine beetle, it doesn't stop at borders. It'll keep eating
no customs.
Right. And this is going to lead to more and more extreme events down the road.
Right.
And the time to really rectify our actions and scale back the warming so that the feedbacks weren't triggering would have been a couple decades ago.
Right.
So we're kind of past the point of the tipping point in some ways. So it's going to require like a lot of innovation to turn the climate change issue around
Right.
and try to have some semblance of modern, what we're living today in the future. So
Right.
we're talking about like massive geoengineering, where you can pull out lots of carbon from the atmosphere. That might help, but I don't know how much of an effect it will have. And that's the problem, I think, that the environment has, where we as environmentalists, it's like, even if we were to stop all missions today, like if everybody was like,
Right.
wow, we're going to stop right now, we're not going to see any change for 100 years.
Correct. It takes the
Because
Earth
the
that
environment
long.
is, yeah, it's very slow to respond. It's like ants. Okay, so the ants um, they don't react right away.
Right.
So it's the environment is the same way. And I think that Tolkien kind of did that on purpose, because it's like, the forest, the environment doesn't have an immediate response to change. So I don't know, I just kind of feel that um, that concept that Tolkien had in the concept of the ents with the concept of the environment.
Well,
So,
he absolutely, you could tell in his writing, he witnessed, an explosion of the Industrial Revolution. In the process, he watched his beloved England lose its forests and pastures, and that's why you see so much of it, like with Sauron, when he was destroying the forest, and how Treebeard reacted when he saw all his brothers, so to speak, were killed.
yeah.
You can see that Tolkien was deep down an environmentalist. Absolutely. Do you believe that coming from an Elven perspective, it colors, the way that you approach botany, the way you think about it?
Yes, because when I look at plants, I feel them, I touch them, and it's like, yeah,
Right.
this is a living thing. It's
Right.
alive. And as one of the characters said, that the plants belong to themselves.
Right.
I believe it might have been Tom Bombadil that said
I think
that.
so.
Where the plants belong to themselves, and you just feel the energy. At least I do when I'm around plants. So
I agree.
um, yeah, I think I do feel that when I'm around them. So I enjoy being around the plants.
So I can say it from the point of view as a doctor, and I can, as a botanist, are you alone? Are there many elves out there? Or let's put it this way, not even those that are necessarily of elven perspective. Do you see more people within the scientific community? Because it's hard to see it within the medical community, though it's there and it is getting better. Within the scientific community, like environmentalism and botany, do you see more people, even if they don't call themselves elves, but are beginning to approach their work from more of a spiritual adjunct as well, that they're trying to include that as a part of their work?
Um,
I know
there
it's
is,
tough.
I think, in the past few years, I'd say yes. We are seeing more and more people being open to new ideas. So whether they're spiritual, we're seeing a lot at the university I work with. We're seeing like indigenous knowledge department. We have an indigenous
Nice.
department now.
Nice.
So which um, works with all the other departments, because there's indigenous knowledge in pretty much all the physical sciences. So I think yes, it's becoming more and more accepted. So, and we're seeing more and more effort on that front. I went to a conference a couple of years ago where it's like we presented scientific posters, but there was also a section where people were able to present like spiritual, like
Nice.
poems,
How
poetry.
how is the response?
Um, we had several. We had several people putting they would write poetry, and that was their
Wow.
entry into
Wow.
the conference.
Nice.
So, So yeah, I think it's becoming more and more acceptable. It didn't used to be because
No.
I've been in the sciences for 18 years or so.
And have
So
you seen a change in that time? For
I
the
have, yeah.
oh,
It's
well, I've been a doctor for over 20 years, and I remember when I first started getting into the medical field, um, it was extremely black and white,
yeah,
extremely conventional. You didn't think outside of the box, and you certainly didn't consider the spiritual side of what your patient was going through. That is becoming more and more common now, thank goodness. And I'm glad to hear it is within environmentalism that people are beginning to take, well, compassion. And with from the Elven culture, we definitely have compassion for the environment. And whether you call yourself an elf or not, it sounds like you have seen others improving over the past 18 years, becoming more sensitive to the environment instead of just looking at it as material or a
exactly.
product.
And that is kind of part of the problem. It's like, and I this always pops up in every talk that I do, where it's like um, we have to find a way of placing value on just leaving nature alone.
Right.
So, like, if you have a 1 acre plot or a hectare plot, however you think,
Right.
and you build like a building on it, okay, it's going to have some value associated with it. Or if you take that 1 hectare block and you just leave the forest there, it's like which one is more valuable?
I agree.
And under today's um, economic system, it's like obviously it has to be developed, right? Because that's what it's worth. That's where the worth comes from. And that's the problem that we're running up against. It's like just leaving the land alone. We need to find a way to place a value on it. And
Yes, a value beyond the product.
yes,
Right. Well, that's what Peggy and I did, with our Elven Sanctuary up in Northern California, 158 acres. We we developed or built our home on 1 acre, and the rest we left completely alone. We didn't mess with it. We didn't try to. We when people would ask if they could use it, we'd go no. Just leave it alone and let it be whatever it's supposed to be. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so we're almost done. I got a couple other quick things to go. Um, What do you, for a little advice for the listeners, whether they call themselves elves or fairy or other kin or D&Ders or cosplayers or just people who are sensitive to the environment, what are some of the things that elves or just anyone can do? A lot of people feel like I'm only one person. I'm obviously not going to make a big dent, especially in a world where it looks like the tipping point's already occurred. What are some things that people can do, to help heal this world?
well, baby steps. Like do what you can do. Don't get too caught up in the overall problem because there
Right,
isn't a single person or a single country that can solve the climate catastrophe problem.
right.
So just do what you can do and feel good about what you do. So my advice is just go online and take part in tree planting events. Or if you want to go, or if there's a protest at City Hall, go to that. Just do what you can do on your own personal level and feel good about what you've done.
Wonderful.
Um, so, like during this semester, there was a tree planting event.
Nice.
So, and because we were online virtual teaching, I said, if you go take part in this event, just take a photo of yourself and email it to me, and I'll give you extra credit on your painting.
Great.
So, and a lot of them took advantage of that, and a lot of them they say, thank you for letting us know this. I feel good about what I've done.
There you go.
So, these are the kinds of things that I encourage people to do, and because your community probably has some extension service or some ministry within it that is for the environment. And you can just go there and volunteer with them, or you can even do an internship with them.
Great.
So,
Great.
and just don't get too caught up in, the overall state of the world because you cannot solve it yourself.
Don't get overwhelmed and think you can't make any effect at all.
Right.
Right.
And if enough of us, take part in these events and, you know, clean the environment and clean up our ways, then yeah, we could possibly turn this around.
If enough people do it, that's right.
Right.
Okay, we're going to tie it up here, but I wanted to give you an opportunity. I did it in the last show, and I wanted to go ahead and give you an opportunity if you want to take just a couple minutes out. Tell us about your wonderful book club. I love your book club.
So yes, I'm the discussant or the leader of
The host.
Tolkien discussion group. And that's been going for a couple of years now. And we meet online on Zoom because it's an international group. We have members from several different countries that join us. It's a pretty small group, though. There's about 10 or 12 of us that regularly attend. And we're reading the Silmarillion next. So we're starting a fresh book in January of 2022, depending on when this gets aired. And you're welcome to join at any point. And what we do is we read chapter by chapter. And while we don't actually read during the meeting, we just go through the book chapter by chapter. And we discuss the eco-spiritual content of Tolkien's works. So we've read The Hobbit, we've read The Lord of the Rings, and now we're going to start the Silmarillion. So if you're interested in taking part in this group, we meet on Saturday afternoons. So if you're interested, you can send me an email. My email is Mckenzie Shawn, then the number 7 @gmail.com. So you can send me an email if you're interested, and I'll include you in the email list. And we also have a website. It's Tolkien Grace at Weebly.com. So you can visit that as well. And there's information there.
Okay, great. This will be airing after you start, but just so that I can make it clear to everybody, this actually starts January 8th, and it's 1 o'clock Central Standard Time.
1 to 2:30 Eastern Time.
I'm sorry, 1 to 2:30 Eastern Time. And like I've told the listeners, I was a small part. I got in towards the end of the Lord of the Rings readings, and I absolutely loved it because, you know, a lot of people think, oh, book clubs, well, we're going to get on there, we're going to read to each other, and that's not actually what happens. Like you said, everybody knows, okay, we're going to read this before the meeting, you know, the week or two before, and then what the meeting's really about is sharing and discussing and debating and asking questions, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and I love the questions. I love the debate. It was really mature and great debate, and awesome questions. It was great to be a part of it, very thought-provoking. And the Silmarillion is a pretty deep book, and a lot of people don't ever make it all the way through it, and they would love to. And so this is a great way to get your feet wet and to learn about it and have a lot of support and a lot of fun while doing it. Okay. All right. Well, I think that will do it for today. Shawn, I really appreciate it. This was some great information, and I hope the listeners will take this to heart and do their part in trying to help heal this world, because that's what it's really all about.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shawn, and you have a most blessed rest of the day. Namarie. We're going to go ahead and take a short station break right now, and when we get back, I've got a lot of announcements to make, a lot of good things happening for the new year. So we'll be right back with Elven Awakenings, chatting with the Elven Scholar on Heroes and Mortals Radio. We'll be right back.
When you go to college, you expect the high halls and libraries filled with old books. But much has changed, and in today's world, online schools have exploded in popularity. Please join us at Lambingomor, the world's first online college with a nod towards Elven and humankind alike. With Lambingomor, you can start a new career or a new life in the holistic health field. Learn a new Elven language, study history and culture or the environment. We believe everyone deserves an affordable education with personalized attention. We provide full certifications in the following fields: home herbalist, Reiki levels 1 through Reiki Master, nutritionist, first aid, Elven history and culture, Elven languages, Quenya and Sindarin, anatomy, botany,
introduction to archaeology, ecology, astronomy, and Elven laws of manifestation and meditation. We also offer full diplomas in the fields of medical herbalist and medical nutritionist. More classes are being added. Many students have already found new careers in these fields. You can pay for your classes outright or join a low-cost monthly subscription which allows you to take as many classes as you like at one time while you maintain the subscription. This college was founded to give you a chance to expand your horizons while believing in who you are. All classes are certified and are aimed at helping you start a new life and a new career. Adult study programs for both elves and humans alike, designed specifically for you. You can find us at www.elvenscholar.org. Discover what is inside of you. Be who you are at Lambengomor, the Elven School of Lore Masters. All right, welcome back. So we're going to go ahead and take a few minutes out and talk about a few of the announcements in next week's show. I'm really excited about next week's show because I hope that I can impart to you some of the benefits of my experiences with trying to be an elf and be financially free in this world. So let's go ahead and talk about the announcements here real quick. As I've mentioned for the past couple episodes, we're still working on getting our interview done. As I said before, this will not be on this show, but will be played and presented on the Heroes and Mortals radio as a separate episode. And that is our interview with B.G. Franklin. He's a fantasy author. Wonderful set of books. It's a series. 2 of them are out right now. One is Azalam, Rise of the Mountain God, and book 2, Azalam, The Shattered Accord. You can find them both on Amazon. I'm really looking forward to doing the interview with him. I've been reading the first book, Rise of the Mountain God, and I find it kind of similar in flavor to the Shannara series, which is one of my absolute favorite series. So anybody familiar with that, I kind of got the flavor of that. I'm enjoying it, the main character. So anyway, I look forward to doing the interview with him very soon. Okay. Some announcements. As always, I'd like to let you know what next week's show is going to be about. This is a very special edition. I will preface it by saying I am not a financial advisor. What I'm going to be doing is sharing with you my experiences of being free in this world so that I can be who I am and not feel like I'm having to compromise my ideals. So next week's show, please have a pen and paper ready with you next week because I'm going to be trying to give you a lot of links and advice that, at least on my experiences, what I did. This is how to run a successful elven, fae, or other kin business for financial freedom. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm giving you maybe the benefit of my experience is what I went through. And part of this, it will be physical, but it'll also be spiritual. The spiritual part is talking about also the perspective or outlook. Do you have a belief system of abundance, or do you have one of poverty-mindedness? Which one rules your life? It highly affects your business. I'm going to be talking about many of the different kind of businesses I've run in this world and ways of making money. Again, it's all about manifestation. What is it that you want to manifest in your life? And some of you may choose to do it because you really want money and all. For myself, the money is wonderful, but the money, again, like everything else that we talk about with this, it's a tool. And how do you use it? Do you use it to allow yourself the freedom to live the kind of life you want, to where you're not feeling compromised by working for someone or for an industry that you can just not grasp or get a hold of or believe in? So I learned a long time ago that to not compromise my ideals and to be who I truly am, I found it best for me to be financially free. So next week's show is going to be sharing with you my experiences of how I got there, and maybe you can do it too. Okay. In the next few episodes, we're going to be talking about this, one of my favorite subjects. I think you're going to be amazed at it, and I've talked about it now for a few weeks, is you are a note in the cosmic music, the song of life. How you are actually a note of music. You are actually music in the universe. This is very much an elven belief that music is very powerful and very magical. That's how the universe was created, was through music, and that you are a part of that original music. You are you are a note in the original song of this universe, and I'm actually going to be showing you and playing for you scientific proof of that. You can be skeptical, but take a look at it. I think you might like it. We're going to be talking about things like how to live as an elf in today's world. Another episode is Elves and Karma. How does that affect us? A series we'll be doing soon is Finding Balance in a Non-Elven World. Finding balance on a physical level, on a spiritual level, and on the world itself. And actually, here in just a few minutes, we're going to be having our final thoughts, and it actually does touch on that topic a little bit. So we'll be talking about that here in just a few minutes. All right, so, and of course, a very hot topic, it might get some good conversations going, is Elven diet. Okay, I know that there's some very big differences in views about what does an elf eat. All right, so we're going to be talking about that up here in the next month or so. Okay, so another thing that's changing, and we're going to get to it here in just a few minutes, is we're adding story time back into the Elven Awakening show. I just really like it here. I prefer to do the stories here because the stories are more apropos. They have a meaning behind them. They are parables. So we're going to be doing another one here in just a couple of minutes. Okay, and again, this show will start simulcasting not only on Heroes and Mortals Radio, but on the YouTube and as well as the Odyssey video platform. You'll be able to catch the show on any one of those platforms. Okay, so that pretty much does it for there. I always like to give a little did you know facts about Lord of the Rings and filming and just in general like that. So I have a couple to share with you, and then we're going to take a quick break and come back with story time. All right, one interesting one was, unlike the Fellowship actors who all got matching tattoos, I'm not sure how many of you are aware that pretty much most of the main characters in the show that were part of the Fellowship all got matching tattoos to celebrate their filming experiences. But Andy Serkis, who played Gollum, mostly flew solo during the production. In order to get into Gollum's solitary headspace, the actor took a 3-day canoe trip down the Wakananu River with only J.R.R. Tolkien's book for company. So he kind of went off to be by himself for about 3 days and had the book so he could read it, so he could really get into the space of Gollum. And obviously it worked. But there were some other issues. The excursion didn't go so well. Soaked and short on food, Serkis had to be rescued by 3 outwardly bound Wellington counselors. So he had to get rescued, but he was not the only one who needed rescuing during that show. It seemed to happen quite often. Peter Jackson planned to stage a riverside battle near Queensland, New Zealand, but a devastating storm flooded the site, preventing them from filming it. And of course, Jackson later repurposed his plans for the barrel sequence in The Hobbit, all right, where they were all going down the river, escaping in barrels. Okay, and he said, we received a notice along the lines of, no shooting today, river underwater. River underwater. Okay, but it did not end there. The cast and crew got separated and stranded and alone. Sean Bean and Orlando Bloom happened upon an isolated cottage inhabited by an old lady. She let the actors crash at her place for 4 days until helicopters could rescue them. That was kind of a neat story all in and of itself. That would have been interesting to have seen. Okay, last but not least, after departing, and this is kind of like and the rest of the history is, after departing from Miramax, Peter Jackson made a 35-minute pitch reel to try to sell the project around Hollywood. None of the major Hollywood studios, however, even bothered watching it. Big budget, high fantasy just wasn't a thing they were interested in making in the 1990s. Tolkien's books might be classics, but their popularity was rather low-key at the time, and the undertaking of adapting them was a huge gamble. Only 2 smaller studios gave it a look. The British company Polygram Filmed Entertainment and New Line Cinema, an independent studio recently purchased by Time Warner. New Line CEO Bob say, watched the pitch video and had only one question. Why make only 2 films when they could make it a trilogy? New Line bought the rights and production could finally commence, and as I say, the rest is history. Okay, going to take a real quick break here, and then we come back. It's going to be story time.
Deep in the forest is a place filled with artifacts of an age gone by, a time when elven and fairies and all those of other kin knew who they were and remembered our mythic past. It is our pleasure here at Elven Artifacts to present some of those memories. With the rising cost of so many things today, it is becoming harder to find those precious gifts that pass along an air of myth and magic to our homes and to our individual lifestyles. Within this store, you may find that one particular treasure that reminds you of your gentler past, something to help grace your home with our memories. It is our goal to keep everything priced in such a way that makes it available to as many of our gentler folk as we can. Through the magic of 3D printing, we are able to offer them at a greatly reduced price. We are including Elven, Fairy, D&D, and other kin products such as statues, wall plaques, bathrooms, kitchenwares, musical instruments, smartphone accessories, clothes, and so much more. In keeping with our Elven traditions, all items are made from eco-friendly biodegradable materials. The plastic is made from sugarcane and bamboo. You're also welcome to customize your own artifacts. One of the most important features of this store is the ability that allows you to customize an item. You can have your name written in your language or in Elven, and even customize the images placed on the items. Please let us know what you're interested in designing, and we will try and help you, again, at an affordable cost. So please feel free to look us up at elvenscholar.org/store, and we'll do our best to help you find those memories that remind us of our true inner nature. Namaste. All right, we're back to story time. So I'd like to go ahead and present a very short story today. Again, I am a lover of parables, and the parables are entertaining, but they can also teach us something, and maybe we learn without even meaning to or realizing that we are. Well, this one is about, I've talked about it before, but it's a beautiful little story about living in the present. And one of the most important things we can know for those that truly want to reawaken their elven, fae, or other kin inner truth is that you will not do that by living in the past. You will not do that by living in the future. I had a most pleasant phone conversation earlier today with someone who is dealing with bipolar and some other issues. And one of the most important lessons she learned, without even thinking about being an elf, is that to live in the present, to enjoy every moment that we have. And if an elf, in the end, through one lifetime or another, or eventually figures it out, is meant to live forever, we don't do that in any other way but living right now, because all that exists is right now. So this is a beautiful little story. It's by Words of Wisdom YouTube channel, a great little channel. And it's about when Gautama Buddha was giving a talk to a bunch of villagers, and a very angry man comes along. And it teaches us about letting things go and living in the present. All right, I hope you enjoy it. Here we go.
Once, Lord Buddha was giving a sermon in a village. He said, everyone should be tolerant and forgiving like Mother Earth. Anger is such a fire in which the one who is angry will burn others and will also burn himself. Everyone in the assembly was listening to Buddha peacefully, but there was also a person who was very angry by nature, who found all these things to be absurd. He kept listening to all this for some time. Then suddenly he stood up and started saying furiously to Buddha, "You are a hypocrite. You always talk nonsense. You just preach, but you yourself do not implement them. You are confusing people. These words of yours do not matter in today's world. Buddha remained calm, even after hearing many such harsh words. He was neither saddened by his words, nor did he react. After seeing Buddha keeping his calm, the person became even more angry and spat on Buddha's face. But Buddha remained calm. He wiped his face very calmly with his robe and looked at the man with affectionate eyes. Seeing Buddha keeping calm, the man got more furious and left from there. The next day, when that person's anger subsided, he started burning in the fire of remorse for his bad behavior, and he reached the same place looking for Buddha. But he could not find Buddha because Buddha had left with his disciples to another village nearby. The person asked people about Buddha, and while searching, he reached the place where Buddha was giving discourse. On seeing Buddha, he fell at his feet and said, "Oh Lord, I am sorry. Please forgive me." Buddha asked, "Who are you, my friend? What happened to you? Why are you apologizing?" The man said, "Have you forgotten me? I am the one who treated you very badly yesterday. See, I am the same person who abused you and spat on your face yesterday, but now I am ashamed of my behavior. I have come to apologize for my wicked conduct." Lord Buddha said lovingly, "My dear friend, I live only in present. I have left yesterday there, and you are still stuck in it. You have realized your mistake. You have repented. You have become pure. Now you have entered today. By remembering bad things and bad events, both present and future get spoiled. Therefore, don't spoil your today because of yesterday."
All right, it's time for final thoughts, and this one might get a little intense for some. I hope you'll understand. This is in relation to a question that I was asked by Mark, one of the owners of Heroes and Mortals Radio. And it was a wonderful question. It was in relation to, all right, if you were to look at the world as a doctor and to treat holistically, because he knows I'm a doctor, and he wondered, as a doctor, if you were to try to cure the world's ills, and you were to look at it from the point of view as a doctor trying to cure holistically. And of course, holistically in this case, it means two things. It means the whole body. In other words, taking the whole earth into account, all of its people and everything going on. And holistic also means to do it naturally as a whole program, to take everything into account. Well, the question was, with all the fear and all the violence and anger and the world being so out of balance, as a doctor, how would you approach this from a holistic point of view? And I thought that was a fascinating question. I'm going to be talking about this more in a later episode, but it really seemed apropos now with all the things that are going on. And I'm not going to get any politics. I'm not going to get any details. This is purely, how would I approach this as a holistic doctor, as a holistic elven doctor? How would I approach working with the world? So, in short, obviously, this is a very long topic, and we both agreed that we could actually send messages back and forth for the next year or so. And we probably will, kind of like playing a long-distance chess game. But I went ahead and wrote him a short letter in reply and said, I'll try to cover more of it later, which I'll try to do a little bit in today's show. So I'd like to read you the letter that I wrote for Mark, and then I'll try to expand on a little bit. So anyway, here we go. The name of the letter is, because he wanted to get to what is the root cause and how would you cure it of the world's ills. So the name of the letter was The Root Cause of the World's Current Situation. And I go, what a question. Well, the answer I give may seem overly simplistic. Nonetheless, I have found it to be true in each situation. The world and its citizens have gone through this since the beginning of humans and will remain so for many, many generations to come, due to a sad lack of education into the truth of life. I'll be doing the show on January 23rd on how to create your own Elven business for financial freedom. But within this show, I will be talking about one of the most important aspects of how to manifest that goal. Do you maintain a mindfulness of abundance or one of poverty? As I've said so many times before, this again equates to one based on love or one of fear. Most humans will go through lifetime after lifetime with a mindset of poverty, that life is unfair and that they must grab what they can, when they can, at all costs, because there seems to be a limited supply of resources in this world. But by the laws of Elven manifestation, it is actually the opposite. What are they so afraid of? Their fear of not fitting in, fear of a lack of power or resources, fear of rejection, fear of weakness, fear of a lack of control in one's own life, and fear of fear. For so many, they are not aware of the absolute divinity of life, of the sacredness, of the magic that literally permeates the very cells of their bodies. We are truly stardust. We are tiny, beautiful examples of starlight walking upon this stunning green and blue sphere we call Earth. With the current climate of fear-mongering that is occurring in the world's governments and the media, people are becoming inundated with a false narrative for the payoff of sensationalism, which equates to more viewers, the media, or for more control of the masses, the government. While some would consider this tinfoil hat wearing, a casual glance at human history would reveal otherwise. Henry Ford put it so well: any man who thinks he can be prosperous by letting the government take care of him better take a closer look at the American Indian. No human government in all of history, in the end, has the citizens' benefit as his priority. The story tells of even Ben Franklin's doubt into the validity of the government, even with the best of intentions. The story goes, Philadelphia, 1787. The delegates of the Constitutional Convention are just leaving Independence Hall, having decided on the general structure for the new United States. A crowd had gathered on the steps of Independence Hall, eager to hear the news. A sturdy old woman, sometimes referred to as an anxious lady, wearing a shawl, approached Benjamin Franklin and asked him, "Well, doctor, what do we have? A republic or a monarchy?" Franklin replied sagely, "A republic, if you can keep it." The United States is no exception to the history of centralized governments. It too shall rise and shall fall, as there is truly no exception to that rule. Now, having said that, back to the rise of mass hysteria and fear-driven lifestyles. One of the most important changes that came to the human condition within this world was the creation of cities. As Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, stated in a meditative trance, the creation of cities was the beginning of the downfall of human civilization. In other words, the end of being civil. As more and more humans gravitated to the cities with a false hope of security, plenty, and safety, they became more and more segregated from the real world, the world of their birth. The Native Americans told you they were waiting to see if you were a human before accepting you into their family. It is a very common belief amongst most cultures that you are either a human or a demon. It is, of course, always a choice we make with each rising sun. As humans become more separated from their true nature, that which nature can so easily provide a great gateway for, they began to substitute it with tech, industry, and etc. As time progressed, they began to forget the lessons that humans had taken for granted. The need to slow down, watch a sunset or a meteor shower in the winter, to watch the birth of a new life enter this land, to feel the gentle caress of the one you love without condition. They now watch illusion. The TV screen, online games, tiny glowing screens from their smartphones, to the exclusion of all else. I am not saying these things are evil in and of themselves. Again, they're merely tools. It's how we use them. They are meant to enrich our lives, not to become a substitute for life itself. As an individual moves further from their true nature, fear naturally begins to creep in, as we know on an instinctive level, a level within the soul that something is wrong. It can be so difficult to put a finger on it. They just know that something is off, not right, out of balance. So, they turn to others who say that they know how to make them feel better, even if it's a diversion, a moment of escape. But rarely do they find that they have their best interest at heart. They begin to reject the company of their fellow brothers and sisters and to become deaf to that still small voice from within. And then the fear begins to set in. The more we allow fear to rule our lives, the less we are able to see the truth behind the illusion. It is as I have said before, if the moon is the truth, and I'm just talking symbolic, we only see its reflection, and we only see its reflection in a pond. We begin to accept that the reflection as the truth, because we've forgotten to simply look up and see the truth bare and unstained. Therefore, if we accept the reflection as the truth, then with each little ripple, each breath of wind can disturb the surface, thus blurring the truth. The ripples can be scare tactics from our families, the media, the government, our own lack of understanding how the universe works. It is important to keep in mind that most people in power have as a part of their agenda the desire to control what you believe. While at times this can be a truth, they are trying to impart on to us. It is above all our sacred responsibility to judge that truth, the matter for ourselves, to find what works for us. And any agency that actively participates in taking that freedom from you shows the type of fruit it bears. It is better that a world vanish, a country destroyed, a people wiped out, than for them to lose their humanity, to lose that precious gift of self-determination, of free will that marks the divine spark within each of our souls. What is the root cause of all this? The growth of fear as a way of life, a desire for people to accept someone else's claim that they can make them feel safe in a world turned upside down. And yes, my dear friend, this is what Hitler offered in the 1930s to a people destroyed by a previous world war and desperate for someone to save them. The governments of the world work differently today, a much more clever technique. They use the media and tech to such a high degree that you no longer look outside of it for the truth. You wait for it to be told to you. All right, so what does this all mean from an Elven point of view? Since this is an Elven radio show, what am I trying to say? Well, as elves, we know instinctively that in order for there to be a true healing, it must be done holistically, which means to treat the whole body and with a variety of different protocols. So on a physical level, it would be fresh air, natural medicines, diet, counseling, exercise, natural therapies. And the whole body, for example, if we have treating a thyroid, we don't treat just the thyroid. We treat the whole body because the thyroid did not get out of balance all by itself. It takes the complete system. And it's the same with the world. You don't just treat one aspect, for example, say politics. It took something else for that to get out of sync, or the environment. It took something to create that imbalance and to look at the world from a holistic point of view. All right. Therefore, as a natural given is that if you want to heal the world, then the first place is to start to heal yourself. It's the old parable. Take the beam out of your own eye before you remove the mote from someone else's. How can you expect to heal unless you're healed? How can you expect to give love if you can't even give it to yourself? Someone brought up how I mentioned Zen Buddhism a lot, when Tolkien did not. Okay? How can this be elvish? It's because as elves we are not tied to any one religion or belief system. We simply know that we are children of this world. As I said, walking starlight, finding our way in the universe, learning to remember who we truly are. We are not becoming elves. We are remembering this that we always were. We've just forgotten. We have learned that there is truth in all beliefs, a grain at least. We use the tools as we need them and discard them when they are no longer useful for our lives. We learn to find balance within our own lives. Then we can reach out and help others. Mark, my dear friend with the Heroes and Mortals Radio, asked about what would be the analogy on a world level from a medical perspective, such as doing something like a MRI or scans or such. What would be the world type of MRI? And my response was to consider that, for example, an MRI attempts to peer within the individual to find the problem. Well, for myself as an Elven doctor, my version of this would be something like Reiki, which can indeed peer deep within someone's heart and help reveal and then release what is hidden and holding that individual back. And one of the things we learn when we become Reiki masters is that the world itself is a being, and you can indeed do Reiki even on the world itself. Help heal her also. You can be a conduit for that. In short, how to heal the world? You do it by starting with ourselves. Find that quiet time. Listen to music. Meditate every day. There's an old Zen saying that's in response to someone asking, how long should I meditate each day? And the joke is 20 minutes, but if you're busy, an hour. All right, you obviously need it more. I love this parable and that I'm about to play for you. It's a short audio. It's about putting down the things in your life that are weighing you down. Obviously, when you're weighed down, you get out of balance. The audio is from the Imagine Freedom YouTube channel. We can start with doing this in our lives, thereby allowing us more freedom. So if you will, go ahead and take a quick listen, and I'll be right back.
There was a man who had a lot of suffering. One day, he asked a Zen teacher for advice. The teacher picked up a bamboo basket, took him to the bank of a small river, and told him, "From here, pick up stones and put them in the basket on your back." The man was confused, but he walked and picked many different stones. He felt very tired after a while. The teacher asked him how he felt. The man answered, "The basket is getting heavier. I almost can't lift it." The teacher smiled. "Do you know why you're not happy? Because you are carrying too many things." Then the teacher took stones from the basket and said, "This stone is wealth." And he threw it in the river. "This stone is pleasure," and he threw it in the river. "This stone is loneliness. This stone is thinking and worry about the past and the future." He threw it in the river. The man picked up the basket and it felt light and easy to lift. Each day, one should train putting things down and letting go. Letting go of rank and status, which makes us anxious. Letting go of losing and winning, which makes us exhausted. Letting go of the relationships that lead us to suffering and worry. Letting go of the pain and the hurt that have been persisting in our hearts for a long time. Because picking things up is like picking up more and more stones and carrying them around, which adds to the heaviness of the heart.
For so many of us, one of the ways that we get out of balance is we attempt to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, to carry the weight or the burdens of those around us. And sometimes we go too far and we end up not being very good nurturers because we're carrying too much of a load. It's important that we are nurturers and healers for those around us, and doing so, maybe we can at least help heal that part of the world we're in. So by dropping those stones that are no longer useful to you, maybe you'll find your balance and maybe you can help others do the same. All right, well, it's the end of the show for today. I hope you all enjoyed it. It is an honor for me to do this with you every single week. So, again, thank you for listening, my friends, and until we are together again next week, may you all be blessed by the elves. My name is Dr. Erendil Spindalelis, and I am the Elven Scholar. Namarie. Megavanen, and welcome to our YouTube channel, The Gentle Musings of an Elven Scholar. My name is Dr. Erendil Spindalelis, and I am the Elven Scholar. Join me on this journey exploring all things Elven. Learn about Elven culture, healing, diet, meditation, and Elven spirituality. Come and take this adventure with me, and together we can find that inner light and balance that exists within each one of us. Namarie.